Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the webinar, Process Mining in Power BI, Creating Value from Business Processes with Quanto and PAF. My name is Katrin Dohlmeier, and I'm the Marketing Manager of PAF, and will happily guide you through the webinar today. I will try to keep this intro short and sweet, as I know that the speakers have prepared tons of great content, and time is short as always. Instead of a long monologue and introduction right now, I will introduce the speakers and their topic before they take the virtual stage. This webinar will be recorded and it should be available on the PAF YouTube channel approximately early next week. As the home office surrounding can be quite loud, the participants will be muted during the whole session. We do have a designated Q&A at the end of the webinar, where questions will be addressed. We sadly do not have time to answer them during the presentations. As you are muted, please find the chat window on your screen and feel free to ask questions there. As you already have noticed, we have a little poll questions you can answer in between. These will always pop up for about 20 seconds. After the webinar, we will send you a feedback mail and would be thrilled if you would answer the questions, as we always strive to be even better the next time and want to make your time worthwhile in the end. Also, personal note, please excuse my bad Dutch. I can literally say nothing aside from poffertjes and will therefore probably pronounce every Dutch name slightly wrong. Regarding the agenda, here a brief summary. We will start with an introduction of Quanto, followed by an introduction of PAF and a live demo of PAFnow, and will lastly look at an actual business case which will examine the optimization of hospital logistics. All right, I think that is all I have to say for now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Michiel Rozema from Quanto, who is not only a data analyst, consultant, and trainer, but also an MVP specializing in Power BI and the former data insight lead at Microsoft. He will start, as said, with an introduction of Quanto. Please take the stage.
Yeah, I have about 50 minutes to talk to you, and I will keep the Quanto stuff very short and talk more about Power BI and its relationship to process mining in the end. So one slide about who we are. Well, my name is Michiel Rozema, and well, Katie said some things about me already. I run Quanto together with my buddy Henk Vlootman, and shortly we started working together with Ruys, who you will hear talking later during this webinar. So we started Quanto with a mission, and that mission is bringing the business back in BI. What we see around us is that business intelligence is still considered to be largely an IT discipline, and what we see is that or in our view, BI is not so much about the technology, but it's really about the business value. And our goal is to bring the power of BI and Power BI in particular in the hands of every business user, because that is where the real business value will be. That said, we like to talk about concepts and about well, making hard concepts easy to understand. And over the years, we developed a framework called the 5-layer model for BI. It's a simple but very versatile model to talk about all things business intelligence. And as you probably know, in BI, what we want to achieve is getting insights based on data. And with those insights, we want to make our business better. Now, there are a couple of things that you need to do when going from data to actionable insights. And the 5-layer model briefly discusses each of the steps needed to do that. And starting at the bottom, the thing what you need to do first, obviously, is connect to that data. We need data, we want to use data, and the data can be everywhere. And these days, the amount of data grows, and the diversity in the kinds of data and the data source Okay, I dropped off for a moment, I think. I'm back again. So, so you want to connect to those data sources and retrieve the data from there. If you do that, you find out that there's a lot of work to do in actually combining data from different sources to cleanse data, to create higher quality data sets, and also to transform the data in such a format that you can actually do something useful with that. And if you have done that, then the fun starts. You can start thinking about analyzing your data. So what results do I want to retrieve from all the data that I have? And what aggregations or additional calculations can I do on top of the data to get to interesting results? The way to do that is by creating analytical models, which will provide very useful information. But that's not the end. So that information is to be visualized, to be able to be consumed by end users. So what we do is we create reports, we create dashboards, and all kinds of applications to actually work with the data or with the information, play around, and get insights in that. I will talk briefly about that later on as well. And one obviously very important thing is if we have created and gotten some insights, what we need to do is to share those insights with others in our organization. So these are basically the 5 layers that you go through when you do BI, whether you do it in a corporate BI platform or you do it only for yourself in Excel, for instance. This is what you need to do in some way or another. But it doesn't end here. Why are we doing this? Well, obviously, because we want to improve our business. So the insights that we create by implementing a BI solution, we want to have actionable insights. So the insights we get, we want to take action to improve things. And what you'll then will see is that you can those actions will lead to changes in your environment. And you can measure those changes and analyze them again. And by going through that cycle over and over again, you will be able to improve your business tremendously. So this is still a very generic model. Now we are specialized in Power BI, and one thing that many people don't really realize is that Power BI is a platform that covers all the 5 layers in this model. So you can use Power BI to connect your data, to prepare your data sets, to analyze your data, to create reports and dashboards, and also to share the insights with others. And looking at the right side of this picture and actually take action on those insights in your business, it's good to know that Power BI is a part of something bigger, which Microsoft calls the Power Platform. And there's actually 2 interesting things there. One is called Power Apps, which is a platform to create apps to actually enter or change data. And another component of that Power Platform is Power Automate, which is a platform to connect all kinds of information systems together. There's even some other parts in the Power Platform, and what you can see is that Power Platform is one of the strategic areas of investments for Microsoft at the moment. So what I want to do now is to focus on 2 aspects of this overall picture. And I can talk for hours and days about everything behind this, but I want to focus on 2 things. And one is about concepts behind Power BI reports. So everything you do in that visualize layer that you see there. And the other one is to make some remarks about how do we get from insights to, in the end, business improvement. And what we will see is that process mining is a very logical thing to do in that phase. But let's look first at visualizing data. Now I'm not going to do Power BI demos here. We don't have time for that. We'll save that for later. But I want to talk with you about two basic concepts of reports in Power BI. And those two are visualize and interact. And those are two important pillars of Power BI reporting. Let's start with visualize. If you look at the 5-layer model, we've talked about analyzing data and creating analytical models. Lots of interesting results and information come from such an analytical model. And if you work with Excel, you will know that typically if you present information in Excel, you tend to have lots of numbers in rows and columns, and there's a lot of information there, but it's not really insight because you tend to drown in the amount of information that you get. So to turn information into insight is actually one important thing to do is actually to reduce the amount of information that you present at one specific time. And the second thing there is that if you visualize your data, so just not present numbers, but do it in a visual format like a chart, you allow your user to view immediately what the interesting data points are, and well, what he or she should focus on. Now, that works very well. But there's one downside to that, and that is that each insight that you present will lead to a new question. To give a very basic example of that, if I tell you and I provide the insight to you that our sales was 10% higher last week than the week before, your response will probably be, okay, great. And the second thing you will ask is, how come? Or where do we did so well? And that is typically what you always see. If you present some insight, immediately another question pops up. To answer that next question, interaction with your report is very important, and that is how Power BI approaches this this phenomenon. We present data or results in a visualized way, providing insights, but we also make it possible to interact with reports to get answers to your follow-up questions, which will also be presented in a visual way and could also, again, lead to new questions. So this is an important thing and really a new concept in Power BI versus the more traditional ways of reporting. And we will see that this is true for process mining as well. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is how to get from insights to business improvement, to action. And again, to give you a very simple example, imagine that you have a report and the report provides you a specific insight. For instance, our sales is low. Very basic, very high level insight. Okay, there's a problem with our sales. Now, the interactivity in a Power BI report will allow you to zoom in to that issue and see, for instance, where is our sales low? Where's the problem? Do we have specific departments, specific countries, specific product groups? Maybe we have some salespeople who are doing better than others. And so then the answer to that follow-up question of where and who could be, for instance, okay, we have a sales executive in Germany called Tobias, and he is behind target. Okay, well, that is more specific insight. And next question, of course, is, okay, but why is Tobias behind target? Now, The question why is a complicated question, but in a report where you can present different performance indicators, well, one of the answers could be, well, we see that Tobias did send out too few proposals. So we should send out more proposals because customers will not buy without getting a proposal. Okay, well, that's still an interesting insight. And now the question is, what's next? And the simple answer could be, okay, we'll tell Tobias that he should work harder to get more proposals out of the door. Well, that would be quite naive to do that. But what instead, if you think about it, probably if Tobias is a professional sales executive, probably something is blocking him from sending out more proposals than would be possible. Then the question becomes, okay, is in this process of getting proposals out of the door, is there something we can improve? Now, looking at that at the process to get proposals out of the door, well, that process could look like this, right? So I have 5 steps in this process. First, I receive a request from a customer. I will have some discussions with this customer to discuss his requirements and get everything clear. Then I know what my customer needs. I do some cost calculations. I determine some contract terms. So under what conditions do we want to sell our product or service to this customer? I'll write everything down and I send a proposal to this customer. Now, 5 steps. And if our process looks like this, we can, for instance, measure the amount of time needed for each step and see if we can optimize a process by doing things faster. Or maybe we determine some bottlenecks, for instance, that cost calculations are taking too much time or other things. Well, but this is the ideal world. And if we look at processes, there's actually, well, process efficiency is only one of the variables that you should look at. And the other one is to think whether the process is really like it is drawn here. And if we look at the way the process really works, it could be much more complicated than that. And our process could be much more chaotic in nature. So we can, next to looking at process efficiency, or I would say before looking at process efficiency, you could look at process flow and see if we can improve our processes by just doing everything, well, not more than strictly necessary to get to the end result. Now, getting visibility in what our processes really look like, that is exactly what process mining is all about. Okay, to close up this, well, my part of this this webinar, you could ask, okay, process mining sounds great. Why Power BI? In short, a couple of things why while process mining and Power BI is such a nice combination, and actually PAFnow will show you a lot about process mining in Power BI in a minute. But what we see is that the strength of the Power BI platform actually enhance everything you can do with process mining. And I've noted a couple of things here. So easy and compelling ways of visualizing data. We talked about that. We talked about interactivity. So having an interactive Power BI report with a process mining component in it, it allows you to actually look at the problem from multiple angles and do a much deeper analysis there. The other thing is that Power BI being a complete platform, not only Power BI, but the whole platform is a platform that allows you to extend your process mining analysis in many different ways. So not only extending your Power BI analytical model with different variables and views, but also you could use all the other components of the Power Platform to take the next step from that process mining analysis to action based on that insights that you get from that process mining. With that, I give the stage back to Katie.
Thank you very much. I think that was very understandable and everybody has a good first impression. In case anybody has further questions, feel free to write them down. And I say we would continue because time is short. Then let's continue with PAF's CTO, Timo Nolle. Timo is the brain behind our process mining tool PAFnow. He has published various papers on process mining, and as a tech lead, he is responsible for transitioning advanced technology from research into successful business applications. He will now give a short introduction to PAF and then show a live demo of PAFnow. The stage is yours, Timo.
My name is Timo, and thank you, Katie, by the way, for the nice introduction. So I want to take a couple of minutes to really very briefly introduce PAF and what we do. So without further ado, let me skip the intro slide and go to this slide. So PAF is a company that specializes in providing process mining software. And actually our roots or our connection with the process mining technology goes back very, very early 2000s, right? So process mining actually was invented in 1999, 2000. And then it took a little while to actually take off and before the first business softwares were available. This was around 2008 and 9, and we were thinking about process mining already back then. And our founder founded the PAF with this strong vision in mind that he wants to make process mining very easy, very simple, very tangible. So it should be at your fingertips. And we actually had to wait a couple of years before we found the perfect place on where to put it, where to implement it in. And this is actually the second love that we have, apart from we love process mining, but also we love Power BI. And once we found Power BI also in the very early stages, we immediately knew, okay, this could be big. This is the place where we should put it. And this is essentially what we did. But I know I am talking about process mining. I'm sure you know about Power BI, but do you know about process mining? Well, let's work on that. So the question is, okay, what is process mining and why should I care? So why is it so important? Why does everybody now talk about it? And let's tackle the questions in reverse order. So let's first talk about why should you care? So the reason why you should care is essentially this picture. I know this is kind of a funny picture, but it actually has a lot of meaning because this shows that usually our expectations are very far from reality. So in this picture, we can of course see that there is a little gate in the middle. So some of you might say, okay, what a pointless gate, you can just go past it. But maybe there's some regulations, right? So there has to be a gate, there's no other way. But this picture shows very nicely why you need process mining, right? Because you need to be able to see that the process you have in mind actually isn't being followed. And to be able to do that, you need the whole scope, the whole picture of the process, how it really runs. And this is best done, of course, if you go into the data that you gather. So now let's just use this as an example. And let's just say this is a smart gate, for example, and that we can actually get information as when some car is passing this line here and when it's passing this line maybe. And also we get information as to when this gate is closed and when it's open, for example. So we can know that somebody coming from here, okay, somebody coming from here and then standing at the gate actually has to wait for the gate to open before they can pass and go through it here. So that we know, okay, this is perfectly conform with the process that we have in mind because we know they actually approach the gate opened, they passed the gate and the gate closed. Yeah. Whereas if I want to find these outliers here that actually go around, that would have been they would follow a different process essentially. They would go here, go past, and then go here. So there's no gate opening and closing. So the problem is I could tackle this with my classic data science, data mining techniques, but there's an essential thing to this, and this is that the order in which I operate matters. So I first have to approach, then the gate has to open, and then I can pass. I cannot pass before the gate has opened. And this idea of having time-dependent sequential data is very, very important, we think, in business analytics, because everything, I mean, time is there all the time. This is a very important dimension to all of us. We all get older every day. And you have to take this into account as well when you do the analytics. So without further ado, I think I have motivated this example. I will stick with this example in the live demo. And what I've done, basically from my smart gate, I have gathered all the data that I could find, which essentially tells me, okay, look, there's a car that has the number 1, and then it approached the gate at this time, and it took maybe 7 seconds, gate closed, inserted a card, all of this. But you can already see that looking at this on the table is not really intuitive. And this is where the visualization aspect comes into play. So to actually understand, and this is nice about this picture, you can see the problem, because you can definitely see that there is car markings on the green here. Yeah, so you can see there's something wrong, and then you can investigate. The problem with your business processes, it's basically invisible to you. You know how it should run, but you do not really know how it's really running. So it's essential that we actually get to this picture first. So let's do that, and let's take this data, and I'll show you how to set this up. So I move to a second page, and what I have here is a custom visual that we provide as part of the PAFnow solution. And I've partly set it up, and now once I actually fill in the last field in here, you will see that the process mining will start. So let me do that. I will use the activity name target and drop it into this field, and now the process mining starts, and we can see, okay, this is the process, how it really runs. It looks kind of okay. So we approach the gate, we press a button, we retrieve some card that we have to use when we want to get back out again. The gate opens, we pass the gate, and then it closes. Looks all in good, and then this obviously is the way out. Yeah? So if I already have a card, I just insert it and leave. But what I can see as well is that the slider down here is indicating that I'm not seeing everything. So if I crank this to the right, we can actually see there's more. So for example, you could also insert money into the gate, and then it opens. Or we go one step further, there's actually people. So this little icon here indicates that people have successfully pressed the button. So some people might think that pressing the button more often might lead to a faster output of the card, who knows? Yeah. But this is the difference here. And if I go further to the right, there's actually also that you can call a reception. And then essentially these people were not allowed to pass, so they left the gate again. Yeah? So the reality is much more complex than we would think. Yeah, much more. So the gap between what is our expectation and what is the reality is quite huge. And this is why having a visualization like this is very nice. I mean, yes, we can see it on this picture because it's essentially a picture of some green where people pass the gate. But if you talk about more sophisticated business process models that are running inside the businesses where you have no picture, this is the picture that you need, because here you can actually see, and this is the point I was making, this arrow here. So there's actually people who actually go from approaching the gate directly to passing it, which is essentially sidestepping it. So we can see it right away that this is true, and we have kind of validated our assumption. But I'm actually more interested in now that I know this, okay, how often does this really occur? So now let's annotate this picture that we have, the process model that we essentially discovered with the volumes. So let me go back into my data fields and grab the case ID and just count it. So I used the case ID and I put it into my edge labels and switch this to count as thing, so I know exactly how often this path has been taken, for example. So I know I have 10,000 cases, which I can also verify in this picture here, 10,000 cases, 9 variants. I come to the point where the variant is. So the 10,000 start here, and I see that it's 267. So that's not too bad. That's not too many, but it's probably more than I would like, because actually I'm worried about my green and I don't want it ruined by people passing around the gate. So I still want to investigate when this started happening. Yeah? So now the next question is, okay, I know that it's 267, and in total I have 10,000 cases across my whole data set. When did this start? So let's do a kind of a difference analysis. So if I move into another page that I've prepared, and I have to show one more thing. Now, here at the right, I have the variant filter. Essentially what a variant is, it's one unique path of going through this process here. And I'm interested in this one here. So now what I can do, and this is important, Michiel I think we talked about this, about visualization and interaction. So now I can interact with this visual and say, okay, I'm interested in this path. Please include only this and nothing else. And this shows me that I have now filtered to the 267 cases we already knew, back to one variant. And this one variant is variant number 9. Yeah? So variant number 9 is the one I don't like, and this is the one I'm interested in. So now if I go into the difference analysis, and what I do here is basically I count the number of variants I have in my process and the change to it across time. So I know I have 8 variants, 8 variants, 8 variants down here, and then at some point in time, whoop, it changes to 9 variants. So I see that the change has happened here between October and November 2019. And another nice thing, what I can do, if I use the same timeline down here as a legend in my Process Explorer, I can select these 2 adjacent months, and what now the Process Explorer will do, it will actually overlay the 2 process models and show me exactly what the differences are. So in this case, of course, we knew that it's going to be this variant, but if we hadn't known, this would be the image that shows me, okay, this is the difference. Everything that is black in this picture is the same across both months, and the red one is unique to the second month, which is the November. Yeah, so I can immediately see, okay, from going from October to November, something changed in my process, and this is what it is. So now that we know that this started back in October, maybe I have something in mind that, okay, maybe in October we had change in management, something like this. So now let's find out who is actually responsible for this thing starting back here. And this is something you can do as well with a root cause analysis. So let me jump to another page. And what I've set up here is a root cause analyzer custom visual that we have built. Now this is similar to the key influences visual, but it works in a little bit different way. But let me show you what it does. So what I have put in here, this is also similar to the key influences visual. I have put in case attributes, that is attributes according to that are connected to the case of passing the gate. For example, what is the driver? Did they arrive on the next meeting on time? What is the car color? What is the car make? Which direction were they going? Were they actually arriving or were they leaving? This kind of information. And I want the root cause analyzer to explain the selection I'm about to make by using these attributes. So what I can do now is I can say, okay, I'm interested in all the people that bypass my my gate. Essentially variant number 9. Yeah. So let's call it bypassed yes. If I click this, now the root cause analyzer fires up and actually tells me, okay, there's a big root cause on this, because most of the time this is going to be a manager with a white Mercedes. So I kind of can probably figure out who it's going to be now, but it's essentially this is what it's telling me, right? So I've actually gone now from when did it start to who started it, essentially, even though I cannot really do that in Germany and in Europe, but this is what it's told me. And similarly, there's secondary root causes. For example, there's also a manager that drives a Porsche, might be the same guy, he has multiple cars, who knows, and also one with a black one, right? So now let's make the opposite check and check what happens when the gate actually opens. So now here I have a bar chart that essentially holds all of the different activities and process steps from my process, and I'm interested in opening the gate. So if I click this, now the root cause analyzer fires up again and gives me different root causes. So now I know, okay, if I go to the gate opens, I pass. That's usually the classic employees, so they actually follow the rules. That's not the employees that are the problem here. And then one more thing, because we didn't think of maybe that inserting money is an option into this thing. Maybe this is an old thing. I'm interested in when this happens. Okay, so let's go down to the activity insert money, and I click it. And now it tells me, okay, driver type event. So this is usually when there's an event maybe on my premises, then people just put in money and there's no reception or pressing buttons. All right. But now that I know, okay, when did it start, who started it, I maybe want to know why they started it. Because managers, maybe they were running late to their meetings, and perhaps this is really a big issue that they take too long to actually go through the gate, so they just go past it. So on this page now, we again have the same picture, and now all of the red that you see in this picture is actually paths that take a long time, right? So what I can see, if I make this a little bigger, for example, talking to the reception usually takes around 3 minutes, whereas calling the reception takes 3 seconds. What I find interesting is that, so I approach the gate and then I do nothing for 1 minute 20 seconds before I call to the reception. And this is usually what the visitor should do, of course. The visitor comes, they call the reception, they get let in, they let them in or not. But if it takes them 1 minute 20 seconds to actually figure out that they have to call the reception, there might be something wrong in this as well. This is just something I've just now seen, which wasn't really what I was looking for. But it's very easy to actually spot this in these kinds of pictures once you start annotating them with more information like highlights and so on, right? So let me go back. This is again variant number 9, and what I've done in this bar chart up here is I ranked them based on their total duration of passing this gate. And what I can see is that number 9 next to number 8, but number 8 is simply approaching the gate and then leaving it because you're not allowed to get in. These are the 2 fastest variants through the process. So I can kind of understand why they do it, right? Because this is much, much faster than what you should usually do, which is probably this one, which is go there, I guess this one, go there, press the button, retrieve a card, gate opens, you pass, and it closes. But this is a speed up of 8 times. Yeah, so it makes sense, maybe makes sense that they do it, but of course I still need my gate there. But what is interesting now, and this is what I talked about earlier, is that we have found that this variant here, which is the variant where the visitor, as we can see in the root cause analyzer again, this is the variant where the visitor comes, they have to ring the reception for them to open the gate. And this takes twice as long as just pressing the button. So maybe I can change my process a little bit for the better for my visitors and move this variant that I have with them calling the reception to being the normal variant where they just press the button and get a card themselves, and then maybe bring the card to the reception. And once they go out, they put it back in. Yeah, so I can actually optimize my process just by looking at these things because I know, okay, this variant doesn't really make sense. And also, it appears not to be very very easy to understand what you have to do. You approach the gate and you wait for a minute once you actually start pressing the button to call the reception. All right, I think I'm running out of time, so I will briefly skip over this page. So this is the last thing I want to show, because of course, this being custom visuals and visuals being interactive, you can of course also build your own benchmarking pages where you use the same visual twice, right? So you can have this visual where there's the process for just an employee driver type versus the one where you have a manager as a driver type, which is down here, manager. And here we can see that these two are essentially the same, apart from the manager having this special trick of just going around the gate. All right, so with that, I think I have to go back to the slides and finish my slides. That was the live demo. What's next? So I know probably some of you are now intrigued by this technology, and your question would be, how can we try it, or can we try it? And the answer is yes, you can. If you go into the AppSource marketplace, go to appsource.com or go through the AppSource marketplace through Power BI itself, you will actually find our process mining visual there, which works essentially the same as to the premium version I've just shown. All you need is your activity name, a case ID, and a timestamp, as I have demonstrated, and you can get going right away. You can do it today. It's free, so I urge every one of you to just download it and to give it a try. I'm sure that you will find use cases within your companies or whatever you're working on in your data where you find, okay, I have actually time-dependent data that I cannot really analyze with Power BI vanilla. You should try it with this. And with this, I go back to this page, and a big thank you from all of the team of PAF that we had the opportunity to actually present what process mining is and why it's important today for you. And I will stay until the end, and I'm looking forward to your questions in the end. And back to Katie.
Thank you so much. I am, again, utterly impressed. Probably a bit biased, but always very, very, very intrigued. Thank you. Really cool. And again, if anybody has questions, as Timo just said, feel free to leave them and we will answer them later. And as time is running, so let's continue. Now we're heading towards an actual real life business case. Next up, Ruys. Coen has 17 years of consulting experience and specializes in translating the information needs of organizations into a structural digital solution. His focus areas are design and implementation of a digital strategy, AI, process mining, Power BI, data governance, and enterprise architecture. Oh yeah, and let's not forget he's also a doctor. He's wrapping up this webinar with an actual business case regarding optimization of hospital logistics. Very important topic, especially in these challenging times. Please, Koen, take the stage.
Thank you so much. This is Koen from Holland. Thank you for the short introduction. They asked me to show something to you that isn't that easy to grab. And one of the most difficult things to show is patient flow in the hospital. And my example is about patient flow. But first, it's about process mining. And process mining is a big study in Holland already. But the funny thing is, it's made very easy with PAFnow. And that's the reason why I liked it so much. But before I tell you something about PAFnow and visualization with PAF in Power BI, I always like to remember my audience that it's all about data, 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 and data. If the data is bad, you get wrong conclusions. Focus always if what you have is good. Is it reliable in data? And the next question is, what can we do with the data to improve the business? So what is it? And it has to be a live demo, so I made steps of it. The first thing I always do in the hospital is ask to the doctor, please, can you tell me what the idle process is in your hospital? And they start to explain. I will show you an example in a few minutes. Then I visualize the idle process, the patient flow, or zorgprogramma's as we call it in Povertjesland. I always make a demo with a lead program, Makigami. I always visualize how they think that the patient flow should be. Then I ask for the log, not that difficult anymore. And I always ask what kind of selection I have to make. And then the funny part, I really show how the reality is. And I leave them always behind in confusion because they don't believe it. And the last two things is I capitalize what they can gain, what the profit are if they work more standardized, and if there's a happy flow for the patient in the hospitals. And then after said that, it's only the beginning, and then you have to implement it as well. So this is a little bit the idea. So the first thing I always do ask them, hey, please, can you tell me what the ideale idle process is? What is the happy flow from a patient who had to have a new knee? They say, now, first they go for an X-ray, it's orange. Then they go to the poly. Then they go to, for example, for an echo, and then they go to the lab and then they go to the hospital, and then they get a new knee, and then they go back to the clinics, to the polyclinic. Oh, that's easy. Yes, that's correct. And then I ask for the log, and I always show them how the reality is. And this looks like the reality. And they never, ever believe me. They say, nah, that cannot be true. That's not our hospital. Yes, it's our hospital. And I even can show it to them which patients follow which path. So, and I will show you how I do it in PAFnow. So this is a hospital in Holland. And please remember for the idea that this is how they explain to me how it should be. And the next, after I analyze it, I show to them, oh man, if you think this is the reality, but this is the truth. And they find it always very difficult to believe. And I'll show you a little bit how it looks like, if I can make it a little bit bigger. So first you see they go to an X-ray, and then they go to the first visit in the clinic, polyclinic. And then they go to the lab for a short blood investigation. And then they go to the clinic. And then they go to the operation, and then they get physiotherapy, and then they go back to the polyclinic. But that's only a very few people who follow this path. if you look to the cases, there are 625 cases, but the deviation is, the variance are 404. Always the doctors find it very difficult to believe. And if you keep in mind that hospital care in Holland is very expensive, but now we can add something else to that discussion. It's not only it's very expensive, but it is also inefficient. And the moment you show it to them, they start to believe it. And if I just tell it to them, or I make a patient journey in an hospital, but then they do not grab it. But the moment I show it to them and I can easily explain which doctor has done what, it's far more easier to make a change in their mindset that they have to improve their processes. So this is just the idea, and Timo explained a little bit, but I find other ways to convince them that there is a big difference between one doctor and the other doctor, and it's the benchmarking. Now, the moment I show this to them, it's they don't know where they have to. They are looking for oxygen. For example, same example. I'll show it to them. Show it to you. I have made the same selection for all the doctors. No. Here. I made the same selection. It's all patients who have trouble with their knee, and they all went for an operation. So this is Doctor 6, and this is Doctor 2. And that's really a big difference. I'm not telling it's wrong or right. I only tell them, hey, what's different if you go to Doctor 1 or to Doctor 6, or what happens if you go to Doctor 2? Same problem, same diseases, same operation, but a totally different path. And the differences are so big that if I add all the waste in this process, they could earn $3.2 million euros, if they improve the process in the hospital. And not only that, they have more time to play golf. And the last one is very important for them. Only by one simple reason: visualization, visualization, visualization. And that makes it so easy. It took me, I think, 2 days to get familiar to PAFnow in Power BI, and it was worthwhile. It brought me more than if I draw a paper for them or I show them an Excel exercise where I did a little bit the same. So back to the presentation. So the main things is first show them the difference between one doctor and other doctor, show them the difference between the happy path of the idle path and the way they really work right now, show to them how many cases there are and how many variants there are for the same disease, same operation, same, and start a discussion how they could improve. And that's the happy flow, and that's also why I would like to end. Always start with a log, make it very clear to them what you have selected, what you included and what you excluded, show to them what the reality is, and try to find out the happy path, the idle path in the hospital, and add everything to it what's needed. It means when they are work, on which day, at what day the operation is available, at what day can you add an appointment the first day, also after 6 weeks, and every patient has the same path. There's a lot of money to gain, to earn in the hospital if you make the patient flow more efficient. Yeah, for the ending. I showed you only one thing. Process mining is really a study. It's even much more to tell how the alpha algorithm works, what you can do with it. But it changed the mindset from the doctors, and that's why I like PAFnow so much. But there's so much more you can do with it. Okay, at the end, it's a little bit joke, but if you need some help about Power BI or PAFnow, call Michael. That's it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome as well, and very great insights. And well, that's how fast an hour passes. Yeah, so then let's take our time and do the Q&A. We did have some questions. So I would go through them and then just, ask either Quanto or Puff to answer them, if that's okay. So we got the question, is Power BI more accessible than Tableau? Does somebody from Quanto want to answer that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I did both. It took me 2 hours and a little bit help from Timo to get familiar with PAFnow in Power BI. It's much more difficult if you do it in Tableau. Please believe me.
Okay,
Making
great.
selections, but yeah, it's without any doubt. It's
Okay.
yeah, I was not familiar in 2 days yet. I have no stocks from PAFnow, but I have the experience. That's it.
All right, great, thank you. Then are the PAFnow custom visuals only usable in Power BI or also in Power Service? Timo, how about you to that topic?
So the question is if it's only usable in Power BI desktop or in the service. That's right. Also in the service. That's a very interesting question because the custom widgets that we provide work everywhere. They work in Power. Okay, I'm getting calls. In Power BI desktop, they work in the Power BI desktop for the report server. They work on almost all browsers in the Power BI service and in the Power BI report server as well.
All right, thank you. Then another question, are the training modules for free? I think that one should go towards Quanto as well.
Yes. Although I understand how beautiful it would be if all the trainings were free, but we have to make a living somehow. So typically, not free. Actually, during the current situation that we were all in-person training is not really something that we can do at the moment. So we are actually experimenting a bit with online training, and well, actually we have done that once, and that one was free. Maybe we may do that again, but no guarantees. Sorry.
All right, great. And then we have one more question going towards Coen, which is, how had the patient experience being incorporated in the new flow? Sometimes the patient experience exceeds the most efficient process.
Yeah, good question. But I only showed you the flow in the patient, but I could also add prompts, and prompts is result mating of what the results are with the patient. So I could guarantee that the result, the quality of healthcare is the same. There are no difference. The knee is operated in a quite proper way. The quality is the same. I could also add the cost to it. I could also add the growth, the omzet, to how much they could earn. So I could also show that the one doctor is more efficient and earns more than another doctor, and still the results are the same. And please believe me that it doesn't matter if you have an X-ray and an echo on the same day. That's not the difference. That's not the main topics. It is that you go to the hospital and one patient is 6 weeks later go to the poly and the other 3 months later. There are no medical reasons why there are such a big difference between one doctor and the other doctor. The biggest reason is they never discuss it with each other. Hey, you do it in 3 weeks and the other does it in 6 weeks. They have never had some feedback on the way they worked until now. And the moment you visualize it, and I could explain from one doctor to the other doctor, I say, hey, this is better, and the quality is the same. So why not change it? But I could tell it to them, but the moment I showed it to him, they grab it more easy. The mindset that they are willing to change is bigger, higher more motivated the moment you show it and visualize it to them. There's no difference in quality. Punt.
Oh. All right, then thank you. There's one question concerning the recording of the session. Yes, we are recording this and we will upload it to the PAF YouTube channel probably early next week. All right, then that's how fast an hour goes by. So all I have is left to say is thank you so much to our speakers and to everybody participating in this webinar. Stay healthy and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.